Hi, I'm Tom Elliott, founder of OcuRoute, and I'm pleased to be sponsoring this podcast. If you need help taking control of your CI/CD pipelines, come see us at ocuroute.com.
Hi, I'm Matt Little. I'm the Director of Counselling and Education at EmpoweringAwareness.Asia, and I'm a proud sponsor of this podcast.
So, firstly, Michael, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to interview you for my podcast.
Yeah, no problem at all. It's going to be nice to chat to you as well.
I have gone through your profile. I can see you have done a lot of work and also you're doing great work right now. So I thought to tell about your work to my audience.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks. It's always nice. I'm always busy with 10 million things at a time. So I'm one of those people that can't sit still. So if there isn't anything to do, I'll go find something to do.
So before talking about you and your work, so can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Okay, cool. So I'm Michael Hamilton. I do a few things. I would say probably the most that I do is I run a company called Data Simplified. And then Data Simplified specializes in data type of solutions. So we do data warehousing and that kind of stuff for financial institutes. So banking, we do a lot of reporting in the security space, a lot of reporting and data warehousing in the transaction space. And then we also have a few other brands that also fall under the same company, which is Social Simplified, which does social media management, website design, hosting, that kind of stuff. And then I also have a thing called HR Simplified, which is a software as a service solution that we build and maintain and expand to an international HR market. It's a HRIS platform, so that's where you load your employees and you can then manage your leave and your claims and their HR records and their documents and do performance reviews and surveys and engagement and awards and all that kind of stuff. That's probably the biggest part of the business, actually, but it's still growing and it takes so long. So if you ever build something, if you build it, they will not come. It's not that simple. You have to market it, you have to get it into the market. So what I do is I play with all those things. I get involved in marketing, I get involved in development, design. I also wrote the books. I guess I'm an author as well. I mean, that's pretty much everything that I've been able to do so far, I've tried to do. And that's me in a nutshell.
You're based in? You're from?
Cape Town, South Africa. Nice and sunny. That's why I'm sitting here in a t-shirt, not dressed up and with jackets and everything. We are heading into winter, so we will be the next couple of months. It will be nice and cold here as well. But for now, it's nice. It's like 28 degrees today, so nice and sunny Cape Town.
So you are helping in security for banking and you are into data warehousing and you're helping with software as service. So all these things, like what is your background that made you to start all these things and what is your intention to do all these things?
That's interesting. Okay, so my background is actually electronic engineering. That's what I studied. That's what I qualified in. So I'm a logical thinking person. I can understand processes, and but I'm not a developer. Having said that, I know what development entails. My whole career. Now let me go one step back. So I started out in electronics, and I worked for a company where we did things like desktop support. So I used to fix printers and fix screens and power supplies and PCs and all kinds of stuff for large corporates. So we had contracts maintaining all this stuff. So my background was in that, and then I ended up in management, and I ended up in the executive level. And then I ended up in development and software. First, it was application support, where we built and maintained and supported a call data warehouse for one of the larger mobile operators in South Africa, which stored about 10.5 billion records a day. Billion, that's with a B. In 2008 already. So it was a very large data set, and that's where I learned and worked with data, and I understood how that works. So that's the background came from there. And I moved into C-level, and then ended up in general manager positions, looked after development again and e-commerce and that kind of stuff, and then ended up starting my own business about 8 years ago. And that's where Data Simplified comes from. And I am there today and we basically focus on development now. I mean, we've changed a bit. WordPress, website development, and that's happened because our development clients, our companies that are clients that need C#.NET development from us, which is a part of the business, they always asking us, can't you look at our website for us? Can't you host the website? And then these things kind of evolve over time and becomes a service that you offer. So we now these days do a full outsourced, offering to all our clients, where we do the hosting for them, be it website, be it their actual solution, their Windows solution, or their Linux solution, or something that needs to run somewhere, up to just doing analytics, doing reporting, and even running, like you said, the security stuff for the bank. There's back-end transactions that we process for them through to BankServe, which is the clearinghouse for banking institutes in South Africa. So there's a lot going on, and they're all closely related at the end of the day because of expansion.
So who are your clients? I mean, what scale the company is yours?
Company's not big. We're a small business, so we have about 10 employees. But from a client point of view, on the banking side, the bank, I don't want to mention names because there's NDAs in place. But what I can say is that they are the largest bank in Africa. So if you wanted to look that up, you would probably get their name. We do for them. It's all their back end, and that. So in the banking sector, when you do transactions, you need to report those transactions to bodies. Your statutory information, basically, is what they refer to it. So in some cases, for instance, they call it AML, it's anti-money laundering. You need to summarize all transactions up to a certain value and then send that off to all the international bodies so they know who's been transacting money and money that went where based on size and all that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of things we do. And for SARS, which is our revenue services or tax body, we have to report to them on the bank's behalf. So those are the kind of things we do for the banking sector in the Data Simplified side. On the HR Simplified side, there we've got about 70 clients, and they are all starting at a small business, maybe being 10 employees, up to larger businesses of 800 to 1,000 employees. And they use our HR platform for their HR management and so on. On the website and the other website management and hosting, those could be any sizes from, so they all differ. So we've got some that's in the compliance space. We've got some that place like nurses for old age homes, so that's in the medical situation or areas. So it's all over the show. Some of them are in America. One of the ones I can mention, Creflo Dollar Ministries, they're a very large American ministry, and we do their website maintenance and hosting as well on Azure. So there's some big ones in there. It's not they're not small. But then we also have small ones. We have people with, as I said, with 10 employees, and we do their HR, but we also do some hosting for them, and we have some .NET applications that we run. And a few others. Some of them are in the legal space. So it's literally a combination of so many different. They started out as a few large ones and ended up as a whole bunch of small and medium size as well. So that's what happens over time as you run a company. You tend to get more and more people coming in the door. And I think we are small, and that's why we offer a service that's catered for the smaller guy. We don't have all that red tape and that you get in a corporate space. So if I was a corporate if I was a small business and I had to go out, especially in South Africa, there aren't so many options available in the small business space that can give you services. You have to go to the big corporate guys, and they charge you an arm and a leg. So that's where we fit in. We try and be that smaller guy that gives you the basics that actually will work for your business, and doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, and it doesn't get overwhelmed by a whole lot of red tape and policies and things. We follow the basics that you just need as a small business. So that's kind of where we fit in. I hope that answers your question.
So your clients are from which location, which geographical location?
South Africa, there's some in India, there's some in UAE, there's some in Turkey, there's some in the UK, in America. I would say 80% in South Africa itself.
So, I mean, you are working globally.
Yeah. No, we've got clients all over the world. It's not just locally South African clients.
So, what made you, I mean, you are into like HR management and, other side you are into SaaS thing and, your main business is working for the banking. So
Yes.
three different things. Why this? Like, why this
Okay.
diversity?
Good question. And that's actually in my book as well. So I wrote the book specifically about that because I think there's a lot of startups and founders that start a business in one area and they run into a wall and they don't know how to pivot. So they get stuck in that one space and then the business closes because there's no future for it. Now, when we started, the business was founded based on the banking sector and the finance side. We had very scarce skills in the technology that very few companies in South Africa has. So it was at that stage it was called Clover DX. Clover Data Experience, I think is the name. It's an ETL platform. It allows you to take data from any source, transform it and load it to any source. So it's an ETL platform. Then we ended up, the client had started a project in that technology. And they found my profile on LinkedIn and they contacted me and said, we're having problems with this technology. We can't get this thing working. It's been 5 years. We spent 20 million rand on it. Can you please come and help us? Come have a look and see what you can do. We went in, we did an assessment, and we found that the issue was the data quality that they had and the way that the system was designed. So they became our first client. They said, okay, cool. Can you come and fix it for us? And can you build the data quality profile and whatever? So we went in and we did that. And that's when the company started. So we only focused on this one bank with this one specific issue and this one technology. And it went very well for about a year and a half. And they decided not to do project-related work, but rather take only one resource from us and then just use him full-time and then tell him more. So they would manage the project and the delivery and all that kind of stuff, which means that all of us that used to be involved in projects, either managing the project or, whatever else, documentation, testing, all that kind of things went away. So our entire income went from that to this, and we had to make a plan. So at that stage, we said, you know what, we're setting ourselves up for failure. We need to find an annuity income. We can't base our whole world and existence on project by project. Because that makes money. It makes a lot of money. It makes it really quickly. But when the project's over, what do you do then? You need to save some of that money. So we said, well, let's go build something. And at that stage, because I was coming from a corporate background, I was very strict about applying for leave, keeping records in HR, because in South Africa, there's a lot of labor laws and it protects the employee. So you as a company need to look after these things. And I said, you know what, I want an HR platform. We need something in the company. So I went out and I found a thing called, I think it was Paymaster. Yeah, I think Paymaster. That was the only thing available for small businesses. And it was horrible. You couldn't use it. It was so old school. I think the thing's 20 years old. And the processes in it was clunky and it just didn't work properly. And I thought to myself, you know what, there has to be other small businesses with the same problem. And at that point in time, we decided, let's go and design the perfect HR platform for a small business. And at that stage, a larger contact that worked in a very large retailer in South Africa came to us and said, listen, I'm interested in this HR thing you're building, because he was involved in the HR part of that retailer, that corporate. And he wanted us to build an enterprise HR system, and they would look at it because they were using SAP, and SAP was discontinuing their HR module in 2025. So we decided, well, let's go build that. And after about 6 months of building this enterprise HR platform, we realized, you know what, this is going to take forever. We have a lot of it already. Why don't we take this and sell it to the small market? Which is our vision. Our vision and our mission is to take solutions to the small business. And we took what we had, which was leave and claims and the HR part, and we said, let's go and take this to the market. We can build as we go along. And we actually went and we did that. That was in 2019, and that's how HR Simplified was born. So that then came out of it, and we started. So we were still doing the bank. We then started the HR platform because we had developers and we could develop it ourselves. And we then started selling that into the market. And I think our first client we got like a month later, and by the end of that year we had the first 5 clients, and it was proven. You know, this thing worked and people liked it. Now it's 7 years later, and we're up to, I think we've done about 5 or 6 full system redeveloped, so brand new releases. That's on new platforms. It's working. We've got lots of clients that's using it, and it's a successful business on its own. Then, because of the development, we got another company that wanted to get rid of their development book, their clients, because they were focusing on internal projects and didn't want to do external work anymore. So they said, listen, do you want this book? And we said, yes, we knew the people quite well. We said, let's take them over. So we got a few clients from them, which just was normal C# .NET development. And we started doing all those clients, probably about 10, 15 of them. And those were all small projects that they had been developing over the last 8 or 9 years and just was in maintenance phase. And we said, okay, we'll take over the maintenance. Every time they need something done, they'll contact us, we'll give them a quote, we do the work, they pay us, and we move on. That ended up being, I think we've done about, I'm not lying if I say 2,000 projects in that space in the last 5 years. Some of them 5 hours, some of them 100 hours, some of them 20 hours, some of them 2-3 days. And that just kept on flowing in until those clients got to end of life with those projects and they started moving over. But those ones we then got to host their websites and so on. So it all just grew out of necessity. And the main thing was that pivot. We had to pivot from getting those project work in to getting a annuity income, and that's how we move things. So now those people with the websites and the HR Simplified side, those are all monthly income. Even if we do no work, we still get that money coming in. So the business is profitable, it's running on its own without any new business coming in because of those decisions 5, 6, 7 years ago. And that's why we do so many things, like you asked. You know, we do the website, we do the hosting, we do SEO services, we do advertising, it's graphic design, you name it. It's all things that our clients needed. So we started doing them if it made sense. I mean, there's certain things they wanted that we don't do, and we won't touch those. But we also needed those services in-house. We also needed the same services to promote HR Simplified, to promote Data Simplified. So we use those resources internally as well for marketing, for website hosting, for development, all those things. So it just made sense that we do our own, get specialized in that area, and then offer that to our clients as well. And that's why we do all these things.
Great. You started as an engineer, which is from electronics background, and
Yes.
there is an engineer in you, and later understanding the problems in the businesses,
Yes.
finding the solution for it. There is an entrepreneur, that became from that engineer. So,
Exactly.
So you started different projects based upon the requirements that you are seeing, and
Yes.
that's so how that transformation, like that engineering to entrepreneur, like how do you define yourself? Like what kind of a thinking, that qualities of yours is actually making you to be an entrepreneur with an engineering mindset?
I think I was always an entrepreneur. I just didn't know it because I was stuck in the corporate world, and my personality is of such a nature that I perform very well if I get an instruction and I have to deliver it. So if I had a boss, the CEO, that told me, hey, we need to get this up to that, or we need to do this, or we need to get the SLA up, whatever, I could do that. And I was very good at coming up with solutions to problems, be that software, be that a process, be that something else. My personality is of such a nature that if I speak to you about something and I don't know what you're talking about, after this call, I'll go research it and I'll become an expert in it. Not an expert, I won't be able to develop something, but I'll fully understand how it works. And a lot of my background and education, because of the engineering and because of things like my old Windows NT4, I don't know if it's maybe a bit before your time, about how networks worked and how IIS servers work and all those things gave me a very good IT background in understanding how things talk to each other and how software stacks work. So I've got an extremely good technical background. I can sit down with a developer and explain to them what needs to be done in a way that they would understand. I can also argue with them why they shouldn't be doing it in that way and rather better in this way, because I've worked on large projects and I've asked the questions, why didn't this work? Why did we do it that way? And now I understand what the answers were. So over time, I think I kind of naturally drifted over to it because I got to a point in corporate where I was kind of sick and tired of working in projects that I wasn't really in control of. I had to manage them, but I wasn't the decision maker. And it's actually quite difficult now that I'm on my own and I'm a founder of a business. You don't have anybody that you need to report to. You are your own boss. And I'll tell you that you are the worst boss to have. There's no off days. There's no, I'm going to take this afternoon off. No, because you have to report to yourself. And yourself is always going to say, that's not good enough. You need to do it better. Why isn't this better? Why isn't that? So it was a very difficult transition. But I think because of how I kind of matured in my corporate, I left corporate when I was in it for 25 years. So I had an extremely good background in how to do things properly and with processes and understand structures before I went into small business and helping those people. And the nice thing is because I brought that knowledge along of how small business, how corporates work, I can implement those kind of things in a small business, but not without the red tape, like I said earlier. So when I speak to a client, even if they are corporate, I know what they want to hear because I used to be in corporate. But if it's a small business, I can tell them what they need to get, but not with all the bloat, not with all the extras. They just need the basic stuff in place. It's easy then to go and do that as well. So I think that's kind of how I transitioned from coming in as an engineer and then going through a hardware phase, then starting with support and then ending up in application support. And when I was looking after application support, I needed to figure out how to query a database. I need to figure out how to write SQL because a lot of the stuff we were doing, there's no front ends, it's all back end stuff. We had to go and see how files are loading and what's the latest high water mark and all these things. And I wasn't familiar with that. I had to go find that out and learn it. And because of that, I've gained the skills that I've got today. And it's hard work. You just need to keep at it. And every day you have to learn something new. You don't ever stop. I think that's how I got to this role.
So managing different things and seeing different things every day. So you are a constant learner, it seems like.
Yes. Always. Yeah, and I have to do so many things because we're a small business. You've got 10 hats that you put on. So I look after finance. So I've got a co-founder, and he's more technical. He's also one of the core resources that look after our financial clients, the banking side, because he's got some of those key skills. So he kind of gets involved from a technical point of view, but I get involved in everything else. So I'll do the finances, the invoicing, the strategy, the partnerships, because we've got quite a lot of partners on the HR side, etc. So those kind of business initiatives, growing the business, that kind of stuff is my responsibility. So it's nice to have a co-founder. You can bounce ideas off, but he's not at all in the business side of things. He's very much on the technical side of things, which is interesting in some days. But it's also lonely sometimes, I think, for him as well, because he's got nobody to speak to on the technical side, and I've got nobody to speak to on the business side. And that's important, You need to speak to mentors, and you have to sit down and actually be able to speak to somebody and bounce ideas off them and get information. So one of the things I do is there's a thing called Micro Mentor, which is a place where you can go as a startup or an entrepreneur and get a mentor to help you. So I've registered there, and I actually have quite a few people that I mentor that will ask me what do they need to do with their business, and I love that kind of thing. I just love helping people, especially people that needs to go through what I've gone through already. And I love helping them, even if it's a single sentence of advice or just telling them, don't worry, just do this or do that. Because when you're so deep in it, you can't see very far. Everything is in your face, and you can't see the obvious answer in front of you. Sometimes you need somebody just a step back to say, oh no, but you just need to do this, or you just need to do that. And it's a lot easier if you're not involved in it. So I like the mentor side of things. So I enjoy mentoring people. As I say, I've got about 9 or 10 people that I mentor that's got their own small businesses that's growing, and I just love that. I would do that all day if I could, but somebody needs to pay the bills.
So today you are a business owner, you're managing, and you're into management.
Yes.
If what you want to say to that younger self of yours who started, engineering, the challenges that you faced all these years, and the problems that you have solved, what do you say, to that young guy who started, with an engineering
Yes, yes.
skills today, who is being an manager and, being the founder and also helping a lot of clients and being the reason for a lot of solutions for thousands of people.
Okay, so what I would like to say to them is I'm not the smartest guy on the block. Definitely not. If you had to go look at my school and my marks I got and everything, you'd see I'm not the smartest guy, but I am extremely what's the right word? I won't give up. I'm tenacious. I keep on going. So if you are a new engineer, or you've just completed your studies, or you're busy working somewhere as a software developer and you've got an idea, I would say definitely pursue that. But a small piece of advice I would like to give them is at least see how the corporate world functions. At least stay in a job with a manager and learn what it means to work for somebody. You need to have that background. You need to have that framework and structure and understand things like policies. And there's no better place learning that than in a job somewhere. So go and do that. Take a while. Start your little SaaS or whatever you want to build. Do that on the side as a hobby or something. See how it goes. First of all, build the audience, like on Twitter. Go and get the idea out there. Say, listen, I'm going to start with this. Get a website up. Speak to people about it, and get people that like the idea to sign up for a pre-release or a first come first serve type of thing, and that you've got that contact base there already by the time the product's ready. Second thing, don't wait until it's perfect. You need to get it out there. So even having something out there that's got a small bug in it or doesn't look the best is 10 times better than not having anything out there. So that's the second thing. Third thing, finances. Keep track of it. Don't ever lose track of that. And it's difficult. Finance is extremely difficult, especially if you haven't done that background. The problem with finance is it rolls. So you're invoicing something now and you only get the money maybe next month. So when you look at your bank account, you've got so much money, but you also have so much bills coming in that's going to take that money. So you never have a clear understanding of what's the actual money I have available, what's my actual profit. So keep your financial statements, look at draw up an expense statement. You can see what you're going to be spending, so you can track these kind of things. And with that, get yourself something like QuickBooks or Xero or something. It just makes your life so much easier. So do that as well. Then I would say after that, diversify if you can. Build as many things as you can, not something single, although niche is a way to get into something and then expand on top of that, and expand on how clients ask you for features. So when we went in with our HR platform at the start, it was a very simple HR product that had an HR record and leave-in claims. Now we have about 10 modules that does all kinds of stuff that actually doesn't belong in an HR platform, but it's evolved over time because clients asked us for it. So listen to your audience, listen to them and what they need, and start building that. So you need to, if you're that engineer, you've already got that mindset where you want to build things. That's why you become an engineer. So go and build those things and play around and never ever stop learning. I think that's so important. And read books, read lots of books. Some of the best books I've read, I would say, is one of the ones that jumps to mind always. Well, two of them is Phil Knight's the book about Nike, Just Do It. And then I think it's Shoe Dog is the name. Very inspiring book. If you want to read it as an entrepreneur, that's a good one to do. And then Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I think that book actually changed my life. The fact that you need to ask yourself why you are doing something before you start doing it. We've got a clear why. I know why we want to do it. It's almost like a vision. there's a reason why you start doing something, and if you tell people what the why is before what you do, they've got a tendency to listen more to you, and that's the concept of that book. It's brilliant. Anyway, so as an engineer, I would say do that. Go work at the company for a few years, get your stuff, start building your side hustle, start getting your project out there. Get your audience in from the start. Once you have a following, then you can start releasing some of these things, and get money in. There's another thing that I always say as well, and that's a little bit later in the thing, is don't be scared to fire clients. We always look at getting new clients in, and the problem is, if you look at your stack of clients, 80% of them are very easy, and they bring in most of your, actually the other way around, 20% bring in 80% of your revenue, and the other 80% are the ones that's really difficult, that takes all your time, and you actually don't make a lot of money out of them. So go sort your clients from top to bottom, put the difficult ones at the top, at the bottom, and go look at those, and every year fire the lowest one. Get rid of them, because you're going to see, if you can look at them, they just take a lot of money and time, and they don't actually generate a lot of income. And if you do that, you have place and time to spend on new clients, which are nice clients, so get them in at the top. So always do that as well. Other than that, yes, just go for it. Never give up. You have to have a goal, though. I mean, I've got a family that need to, have a house to stay in. We've got cars we need to drive. I need to make money every month. There's obviously a financial drive behind it as well. And that needs to be foremost. You need to be able to look after your family. And that's why you're doing all this stuff. And you're also doing it for the future. I mean, one day my son's going to take over from me. He already works for us. So that's interesting. that's a topic for a different day. But anyway, so one day I want to have a legacy that I can hand over to them and say, okay, listen, there, we've built this. You helped us build it. This is yours. So yeah, engineers, everybody can do it. It's not impossible. Don't ever let anybody tell you, oh, you can't. As I said, I'm not the smartest guy or the smartest tool in the shed. But I did it. And if I could do it, anybody can. It just takes a lot of determination and a lot of hard work. You're not going to work 8 to 5. You're going to work a lot more hours than that. You're going to work Saturdays. You're going to work Sundays. And if you don't, you'll still probably make it. You just won't make it that quickly or that successfully, I think. Yeah, that's important, I think. So that's my advice to young entrepreneurs that want to do something. Get that idea first. You need to know what you're going to build. Don't just start building something. It has to solve a problem, though. So that's my advice. It's a lot. It's maybe a bit too much.
So you have you came with a lot of business solutions, and you're solving different problems already. So what are those problems that you want to solve for different businesses in coming years? I mean, future solutions that.
It's difficult because we plan these things ahead. But there's a few places I think there needs to be a focus. The one is in recruitment. I feel, and we've tried to work around this, where you have an AI-driven recruitment solution, or a solution for recruitment that includes AI. There's a lot of them out there that's got AI in. They already do a lot of stuff like summarize things and so on. But the very simple thing is, if I go to a new site and I would like to submit my resume or my CV for a position, I need to go take everything in the CV and I need to type it over into that solution. I have to put my name in and my skills and everything. That should be AI. Something should read that CV and just go put it in there and start, make it all fit. Let's see if we make it simple. And that sounds extremely simple. And you can do that with something like ChatGPT that's been trained. That can easily understand the PDF and whatever and get the stuff out of there. With that, it's quite easy, but that's expensive. So if you wanted to do this in your own solution, you need to go do it with your own LLM model, and you need to train it in CVs. So we've done that. We tried that. On Azure, we took Azure services. We trained, I think, about 20,000 CVs through a model. We had to build a custom model, and we had to walk away from it. It didn't work. Which is actually quite concerning. So that's a space where I think a lot of work needs to be done. The second one is a CRM system for small businesses. There's a lot of them out there like HubSpot and Zoho and whoever else. Everybody's got a different flavor. But they aimed at the bigger guys that's got deep pockets. I think there should be a very simple, low-cost alternative in the CRM space that gives you the basic information to keep track of your leads, and also to gather the leads. In other words, get them from your website with forms, let them flow in, like we do with HubSpot. We use HubSpot, so I know how the whole thing works, but it costs a lot of money every year. And if I want to do certain things with it, I have to go spend some more money because that's in a different package, and those packages get really expensive. So I think there are a few low-hanging fruit in those two areas. Recruitment, and also maybe with the recruitment, more in the HR space, also AI, bringing in like HR consultants, but from a bot point of view, like AI trained in HR. There are some of those out there. I mean, you can do pretty good work with something like ChatGPT, but you can't use something like that. You can't send data from your solution out to the internet and go process it on ChatGPT and bring it. It has to be private, especially when you're working with people's private data, which is a big concern in our space. So those things I think needs a lot of work. So CRM and low-level HR, especially in the recruitment side, I think those are the two major areas that we would do some work in. And then the third one is probably data quality. There's a lot of people that has small businesses that's got a lot of data, and their biggest problem is the quality of their data, and they don't realize it. So when they want to do reporting or BI or something, they run into issues, and the reports don't look, they've got a feeling it should look like this, but it's not showing that, and why is it not? And when they go and really go research, they realize that their data quality is extremely bad. So I think there's opportunity in that space as well to build some kind of generic data quality analyzer, and there as well, plug AI into it. And that's an easy one because your normal models can do reporting and AI without any training. So those would be rather easy to solve. So I think those would be the three areas I would probably be looking at in the next year and a half. Probably, yeah.
So what do you think that business problem will challenge you? Do you have any such problem that will challenge you? You have solved already biggest problems in your life, but that you have desire to solve.
Well, I have a problem with the CRM. That's why I mentioned that. I don't like paying somebody else a lot of money for something like HubSpot, where I only use 10% of the features, but I need to pay for 100%. So I think I might pursue that. On the data quality side, we're kind of fine because we work with data, so I don't think we have that problem. But I think there's opportunity out there. My biggest problem with that is how do you monetize it? I'm not sure how you sell that to somebody, so there needs to be some work done. On the recruitment side, that's a difficult one. We've done a lot of work to make it, in our product, make it as easy as possible. You register once, and that profile that you get gets reused, so you don't have to submit every time all the stuff. So we have brought that down to a more easier onboarding type of solution. But yes, I still want to solve that problem. Like I said earlier, I don't just leave something. So we put it on hold for a bit, the recruitment and AI side, but that will definitely come back. We are looking at bringing in our own language model, a local one where we can do these things. So that's on the table. That it will be looked at. Just not exactly sure when. We've got quite a long backlog of new features for our HR platform, which takes most of our time. And those we need to get out. There's a pipeline, there is a planned, we have to stick to those. We can't just change things on the whim, unfortunately. We would love to. That's the thing about engineers. We love making new things, We don't want to work on old, boring stuff. We want to design something new every time. So we keep on pushing the envelope with new ideas. But that's the thing. We have a whole company made out of technical people. We all love to do that. Then you start running into problems.
So the problems that you have solved, the engineering problems, or as a leader, as a company owner, that kind of a problems, all the problems that you have solved till now and you're going to solve, and the problems which are under process that you are solving. So
Yeah.
if all those questions have a voice and want to ask why you are the solution for this. I
That's a
mean,
good
what is
question.
your qualities to solve me?
I actually don't know how to answer that question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe ask it to me in a different way. I actually don't know how to
Okay.
answer that one, to be
So,
honest. Yeah.
because the way you have transformed yourself, I mean, it can be clearly understood that you have a natural entrepreneur in yourself, in your engineering stages. So you made very simple, the business thing, because of the decision making power that you have, or the problem solving skills that you have. I interviewed a lot of business owners, CEOs. They didn't spoke as easily as you.
Okay.
They were engineers and they become owners, but they speak, or they talk about business problems, uh, in a wider angle. Like it's like impossible thing that I have done. But the way you are, the way you are expressing is making me believe that you have a naturally you have that ability to find the solution for anything that comes to you.
Also like to find challenges and solve them. So I had to show you all the stuff I've tried before. So for instance, let me tell you something I haven't spoken about. So I also like teaching people, and that's part of the mentorship. My mom used to be a teacher all her life, so she always said I should have been a teacher because I like taking somebody and explaining something to them. So I took that love with our HR product, and I actually built a academy where I developed courses for HR, and we offer those courses for free to all our clients. So we've got a Moodle instance set up, because I wanted to take this to the market. Not to the market because we're not selling it, it's free, but I wanted to bring something out that allowed people to, because there's a lot of people that would like to study something, but they don't have the money, they can't pay for it. And even short courses that they would like Udemy and those things where you have a course that is just a couple of hours, but you can't pay for it. You don't have the money for it. Especially in the HR side, because of HR Simplified, we get a lot of people coming to us saying, "Listen, I want to get into HR. Isn't there a course I can do? You know, that kind of thing." So I launched a thing called HR Academy, which is a Moodle. I learned how to use Moodle. I went and I set up my own Moodle on a Linux box. I configured it. I set it up. I did the SEO to get traffic to it. I developed all the courses myself, and I've got about 15 or 20 courses on there. Some of them are for management. So we started with HR courses because we have the HR skills. And we actually developed those courses, and people can go there, register, and enroll and do the courses for free. When they're done, they get a certificate of attendance, and you can verify the certificate as well online. If you give that certificate to somebody, there's a number on there. You can come to our site to put in a number and verify if it's, if that's a true certificate or not. Now, that's the kind of thing I do. Nobody's taught me how to do that. I had to go research. I had to go figure out, and I did all of that in about a month and a half. That was including all the courses, creating the content, the exams, everything. I used a lot of AI for it, and that's the nice thing about AI. People are very skeptic about using it, but if you do use it for the stuff that's just meticulous, like writing content. That's quick. You can use it. You just need to prompt it correctly. Don't allow it to do the thing for you. You need to tell it what to do. And I've got I think it's about almost 300 students that's doing those courses now, and that was all started this year. So that's kind of why I will go look. I challenge myself. I haven't done that yet. I wonder how that's going to be, and then I have to go find out how to do that. So I've got a few things I'm busy with now that it's going to challenge me. Like for instance, setting up the LLM on a Linux box for our internal AI. I'm going to try and do that. Why do I need to bother my engineers? They're busy with other stuff. They need to develop they've got their stuff that they need to do. So I need to get that ready so that they can use it when it's time. So I'll go find out how to do these things. And don't just leave it up to somebody else. And don't think because you don't know how that you can't do it. Go try it. Go figure it out. The internet is full of information. So yeah, that's why I like to teach, and that's also why I speak a lot. You'll see I've been doing most of the speaking here because I want to tell people what they need to go and do. It's not that complicated. You just need to push through and listen to people. If I've helped one or two or three people that's going to be watching this and they heard something today that makes them think, shit, I can go do that as well. Then I've done a good job. Then I've done what I should have done when I came here.
Correct. So you witnessed the technology evolution all these years.
Yes.
As a problem solver or from the engineer to business owner, you witnessed what happened. And how the constant change happened, and you was part of it. You saw it with your eyes and you sensed it. So today we humans are witnessing AI, and what is going to be future connection between human and technology.
I think that's a difficult. It's a treacherous thing to to go into, because obviously we all know AI is going to be part of it. The question is, how far are we going to take that? I can see AI being implemented in levels really low down. A lot of meticulous stuff is going to be taken away, and a lot of people are worried. People like copywriters that are employed to write copy for a website, or those guys immediately they've got a big problem because they've got something that can write just like them. But if you look at Google and their algorithm, they've now been trained to pick up these things. So if content is generated by AI, then maybe we should rank it a bit lower. So that I think is, I'm not sure where that's going to go, but there is definitely going to be your lower level jobs going to be impacted. Where you're going to have, the evolution. Sorry, I'm all over the show now, but the evolution has changed. When my dad was doing his job, he got a little piece of paper that came in and went into an in tray. And he had to make sure that in tray is empty. They take the piece of paper, do the job, put it in the out box. And he had to keep on doing that and, keep his box empty. Then we went over to getting a pager on the hip that told us, here's your next ticket or something. And then we went over to emails. And then we went from emails, we went into WhatsApp and instant messaging and Teams. So everything is sped up so quickly that the amount of work we as individuals today do is probably 20 to 30 times more than what our parents used to do when they were doing their job back in the day. So things are going quicker, and the way that you can get that quicker is by using technology to speed up things, and messaging has been the main driver so far. The way that you used to get a piece of paper and then became an email, then became a chat. Now, there isn't much more you can do there. Chats are as quick as you can get somebody to do something. The problem is you might still be busy with something else, which means you can't do the new thing. Now, that's the only thing you can speed up. So I think that's where AI is going to be starting to play a role, which is going to allow you to fire something off while looking at the next one, and that's going to complete the job for you. And I think a lot of us do it already today. You've got 3 or 4 tabs open. On the one, you're busy creating a new page. On the other one, you've got something running there. On the other side, you're doing your finances, and you're doing multiple tasks at once. And AI is going to start playing a role there, I think. And I think the integration of AI is going to be more where it's going to get so entrenched by Microsoft and by who and Google into documents and Word and all those things that you don't, at the moment I must type a document and I have to attach it to an email to send. That's all going to be one. You're going to type something and it's going to be changed into a document and sent to the right person without you even having to do all of that attachments and stuff. So I think that kind of stuff is going to speed up, and AI is going to play a big role there. From not a software point of view, I'm not so sure about technology. I think we all hope that SpaceX gets its first rocket off to Mars. I'm interested to see that in my lifetime. So from a space exploration, there's so much more that can be done there. That's always an interesting area to look at. Yeah, I I don't really have opinions about other areas. I think those are the ones I'm always interested in. I think climate change, there's also some work that can be done. And I think AI is going to do a lot of work in that space. And yeah, I think that's pretty much that. I think the relationship between AI and humans are going to become extremely close, more than we can imagine at the moment. We have personal assistants, we've got Siri, and we've got whoever else on the phone, and you can ask it to do stuff, but it can only do so much, and that's going to go next level. That's going to be more than you can ever imagine. It's going to start insinuating what you want next and start doing that automatically. It's not going to wait for you to ask. It's going to look at your historical patterns and then just start doing stuff because that's what you do next. And I think that's where AI is going to play a very, very big role. So I hope that kind of makes sense.
You're already working globally, and if the global technology experts are watching this, especially the AI technology leaders who are working on AI technology. So, as a human being from South Africa, what are your thoughts that that they need to put in their mind when they are developing AI, which is going to be useful for humans? Eventually, AI is for humans.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it is. You're 100% correct. And I think the one thing I would, where being in South Africa is a differentiator based on the international market. We have a lot of we have a developing economy. So we have a lot of low-level jobs and a lot of government jobs. The private sector is actually quite small. So I think what we need to do with AI is the way that you get access to it has to be easier. It should be a more accessible technology. A person that is, that doesn't have a blue collar job needs to be able to use it. At the moment, you won't find that. So I think there's, a big part of South Africa's population is not technology savvy. A lot of them don't even have internet. So those we need to consider those things. So I think the biggest adopter is probably this thing. So how do we get it on here that everybody can use it? And we actually still have feature phones in South Africa. I mean, stuff with buttons, not touch screens. So I think there needs to be a lot of work done in that space. And I think actually what's going to happen is the AI is going to be behind the stuff that they use. They won't be using AI directly. It will be integrated into whatever they are currently using and making it easier to use. So that would be the one big thing. Trying to think what else. Well, just from a stupid point of view, but finance, money. If you look at what something like Twitter costs, or what something like OpenAI costs, or ChatGPT for that matter, or Grok, versus for an American citizen paying in dollars versus somebody from South Africa, which is paying 20 times that amount, or somebody from India paying, how much ever that the rupee is against the dollar. It needs to be more accessible at a lower cost. I think that's also something that's very important. And I think the problem with AI is it started out expensive. I'm not talking about ChatGPT, but if you're using APIs, you use so many credits to do something, that already sets some kind of bar that can't really be changed. Everything, even today, after 5, 6, 7 years of AI, it's still token based, and you still need to spend so many tokens to process something. That shouldn't have been a consideration. They should have approached it in a different way, I think, because that makes it expensive at the end of the day. So yeah, I think they need to think about that as well. So it's accessibility and cost. And I mean, obviously, the spin-off of that is how more energy it gets used for AI than it does for normal search engines. I think a ChatGPT search is like 50 times the energy that's required versus a Google search. And with Google now, you have the result coming back in AI as well, which takes me to a totally different topic, like what's going to happen to SEO and what's going to happen to marketing with AI. So that's a discussion for a totally different podcast, I think. But I think there's going to be a big impact. I'm predicting 50% of your ad budget, if you're using ads, is currently a waste because of AI. Because I think it's 49% of people are using the top part that Google gives you back as an answer when you do something, that AI generated piece. 49% of people are reading that and not even looking at the results anymore. Now, can you imagine what that's done to Google's SEO and their whole business around Google search and getting people to do ads? We're seeing that. I think we've cancelled, of the 7 or 8 ad campaigns we're running, I think we've cancelled about 5 or 6 of them because they actually don't do anything anymore. We get better results on organic than we get from ads because nobody's seeing the ads. It's just not performing anymore. And that's even ads using AI to present itself, and all these things that's supposed to be so much better. So there's so much more to talk about in that space, I think. But yeah, to get back to your original question, I think what it costs and accessibility is going to be the two main things. So I think they need to look more at how do they include their services in something else, integrated, rather than making it available directly to the market. I think that's probably where the biggest thing should lie.
So at last, to the new business owners who are watching this for the first time from anywhere in this planet, if they are looking for your service, so what do you say?
If they're looking for
the services that you are providing.
Well, they're welcome to come check out our website, datasimplify.co.za. So yeah, they're welcome to contact me. You've got me on Twitter and on LinkedIn, so they've got my details there. They're welcome to contact me, and I would like to hear from them actually. Not from a business point of view. I just love speaking to people about what they do and understanding there's always an opportunity somewhere. Maybe a partnership or something. By all means, make contact. I'm happy to chat. To be awesome.
So at last, as an engineer who started from with the engineering thing and now become problem solver for different businesses, for different countries. So what's your observation about my work? I'm an engineer as well.
Interesting. Good question. I think what you're doing is interesting. I like the podcast. And the one thing I think I mentioned that to you on Twitter as well is your consistency. You haven't stepped away from doing what you're doing. A podcast is something. I think the average person, I think 80% of people get to something like episode 5, and then after that it just dies. So you've been going on forever. So I think that's brilliant. Keep up good work. Keep on going. There's obviously doing something right. If you want a little piece of advice from me, because I always like giving advice, I noticed that you're hosting your videos on your actual website. So you're streaming it from your site. You're not using something like Vimeo or YouTube. I would consider moving it off platform and just bringing it in via a player. For the simple reason that you're just blowing up the traffic on your site. I don't know what sites you use or if traffic is a problem, but that could be a potential issue, and a lot of storage and overheads that you don't need to worry about. That was one thing I was looking at your site and I noticed that, because that's the way I look at stuff. So there's the problem solver again coming out. But yes, I like what you do. I've watched a few of your episodes and I enjoyed them. All kinds of people, and I love that it's not just one specific area that you're focusing on. So I do like that. So I think keep up the good work, definitely.
So, like you said, I have went to all the different countries and interviewing different experts from different parts of the world who are into technology industry, the leaders, and also the architects and engineers. And also I went to non-technology related people, police officers, doctors, psychologists, marine biologists, and environmental scientists. Like the people who did PhD and the chairman of a university. I'm going.
Oh, that's great. That's great. But see, that's good, because you also have that you wanna understand stuff, and that's important. If you have that need to better experience everything, then you're on a winning course. You can't go wrong. Honestly, just don't focus on stuff that's really not relevant to you. Then, but other than that, if you want to learn something, go for it. Speak to the people. Yeah, it's amazing. Really, really great.
So
I'll definitely, I'll promote you on LinkedIn a bit more. I'll do a post there about you as well.
So this is what my main question was. So day before yesterday, I interviewed a chemical engineer, and also
Mhm.
I interviewed experts from NASA, so who are working
Yeah,
on space technology. So
cool.
how this diversified, knowledge or interacting with completely different industries, experts, and trying to jump into different subjects as a young
Mhm.
guy, how this is going to be helpful for me, for my career, and for my development. Talking with leaders like you who knows already a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, we try, but you in the content creation space. So with these type of interviews and podcasts, and that's something I can't do. I've tried that. That's how I said I try everything. I tried that, and I am not somebody for camera. I mean, I'll talk to you like this because it's not the camera's not on me. It's just a conversation. But if I had to go and record something where I'm the person talking, oh no, definitely not for me. I don't like hearing my own voice. I hate it. So yes, by you for all means, and there's a lot of opportunity in that space. I mean, you've got a good thing going. So that's another reason I mentioned. Why don't you move some of your stuff, your content? If you monetize it on platforms like YouTube and those things, then there's opportunities for that there. TikTok, I don't know. Do you do TikTok or don't you? Do you?
Yeah. I'm everywhere.
Okay, awesome. Well, then you can take those little pieces and make it. See, those are the things I'm trying now, and it's difficult. I don't know how to do those things, but that's the thing. I have to go find out. I have to learn how to. So I'm gonna be learning. So I mean, by all means, it's great. I love seeing your stuff. It's good.
Definitely, Michael. Thank you very much. Your feedback means a lot to me.
It's a
Can I put
pleasure.
this clip on my podcast with your permission?
Yeah, of course you can. Definitely. I would also watch it, although I would maybe cringe a bit if I see myself.
So thank you again, Michael, for your valuable time and sharing some of your
No
experiences and
problem.
answering some of my questions.
It's a pleasure. It was great. It was nice seeing you. I hope we do it again in a few years and I can tell you some more stories.
Definitely, sir. Thank you very much again. Keep
Okay,
going.
great, man. Yes, keep well as well. Have a nice day. Cheers, bye. Okay,
Yes,
bye. Bye.
sir.